Tonight, we journey somewhere hidden beneath everything we know. It is a place that does not rush or change. It waits in silence beneath the noise of the living world. Few speak of it for long, and fewer still understand it. This is the realm of Hades, a god whose name was once spoken with care. Most stories remember Hades in only one way. They place him in darkness and leave him there. But the truth is quieter and far more complex. He was not a wanderer among gods. He did not seek attention or praise. He remained below, ruling a kingdom that every soul would one day enter, whether they feared it or not. There's a reason his realm feels distant in our imagination. The ancient Greeks did not describe it as chaos or fire. They described something far more still. A vast and ordered place where time seems to slow. A place where nothing is hurried and nothing is forgotten. And at the center of it all is Hades, not as a villain, but as a steady and watchful presence. Tonight, we will gently explore his story. We will follow the soft echoes of ancient myths. We will uncover moments that reveal not fear, but meaning. Along the way, we will pause for a few calm and thoughtful facts that help us see Hades more clearly. Here on Sleepy Legends channel, each story is told with care and quiet curiosity. This is a place where history and myth slow down. It is a place where you can rest as you listen. So settle in, let your breathing soften, and as the world grows still around you, we begin our descent into the calm and shadowed kingdom of Hades. Before the world felt steady, there was a quieter age. The sky had not yet settled into its endless blue. The earth had not yet learned the rhythm of seasons. Everything felt closer then, heavier, as if the world itself was still deciding what it wanted to become. High above, and yet not far at all, the Titans ruled. Their presence was constant. Their power did not flicker or fade. It pressed gently against everything, like a weight that could not be moved. Cronus stood among them. He was not loud. He was not wild. He ruled with a careful stillness. But beneath that stillness, something lingered. A thought that never fully left him. A warning. It had come long before his children were born. A quiet prophecy. One that did not shout or threaten. It simply existed, waiting. One day it said his children would rise, and he would fall. The words settled deep within him. They did not fade with time. They did not soften. They remained quiet, certain. So when his first child was born, Cronus did not celebrate. He paused. He looked at the small, new life before him. Something that should have brought warmth. Something that should have felt like continuation. Instead, he felt the prophecy, close, watching, and in that moment he made a choice. He lifted the child and swallowed it. There was no sound of struggle, no cry that echoed. The act was simple, final, gone. The world did not change. The sky did not darken. Nothing announced what had happened, but something had shifted. Deep within, a silence had begun. When the next child was born, the choice came easier. And then again, and again. Each time, the same quiet motion, the same absence of hesitation, the same stillness after. Hades was among these children. His beginning was not marked by light. There was no sky above him, no earth beneath him, No sense of distance or direction, only a vast and unmoving darkness. It was not cold. It was not warm. It simply was. Time did not pass in a way that could be felt. There were no moments to count, no changes to notice, no edges to measure against. Just stillness, unbroken. And within that stillness, Hades existed. Not growing, not fading, not aware in the way the living world would later understand. He remained, held within a place that had no shape, a quiet before everything. Above, the world continued. But even there, something subtle had begun to shift. Rhea watched. She saw each child disappear into silence. She felt the absence grow one moment at a time. It was not loud grief. It was not anger that burned. It was something slower, something that stayed. She began to move more carefully, to think more quietly, to wait. And when her next child came, she did not follow the same path. This moment lingered. The air felt different, softer, but heavier at the same time. The light seemed to dim, even though nothing had changed. The ground beneath her felt steady but uncertain. She held the child close, very close. For a long time, she did not move. Then, slowly, she turned away. She wrapped a stone in cloth. She shaped it carefully so that it felt real in the hands, so that it would not be questioned. And when she placed it before Cronus, she did not speak. He did not question. The motion was the same as before. Simple, final, gone. But this time, something remained. She held the child close, very close. For a long time, she did not move. Then, slowly, she turned away. She wrapped a stone in cloth. She shaped it carefully so that it felt real in the hands, so that it would not be questioned. And when she placed it before Cronus, she did not speak. He did not question. The motion was the same as before. Simple, final, gone. But this time something remained. Far from Cronus, hidden and quiet, the child grew. Zeus. He did not grow in open light. He was kept apart, watched over, protected in silence. The world around him moved slowly. The wind passed gently. The ground held steady beneath his feet. He learned patience. He learned stillness. And as time moved in its quiet way, he began to understand what had been taken. Not through memory, but through absence. There is a kind of knowing that does not come from words. It comes from what is missing, from spaces that should be filled, from silence where something should exist. Zeus carried that knowing, and one day he moved. The moment did not arrive with thunder. It did not split the sky. It came quietly, like everything else that mattered. He returned. Cronus did not see the future. He only saw the present. A figure before him, calm, certain, and then the stillness broke, not with chaos, but with release. One by one, the swallowed children emerged. There was no sense of time passing for them, no feeling of being restored. They stepped forward as they had been, whole, unchanged. Hades was among them. For the first time, there was space. For the first time, there was light. It did not rush in. It did not overwhelm. It simply existed around him. Soft, distant, almost unfamiliar. The ground stretched outward. The sky rose above. The world moved, slowly, gently, as if it had always been this way. and Hades stood within it, still, watching. There was no memory of the darkness he had come from, not in a way that could be recalled, but something remained, a quiet imprint, a sense of stillness that did not leave him. Even now, even here, the others moved differently. Zeus carried purpose. Poseidon carried motion. There was a feeling of forward movement in them, a readiness. Hades did not rush. He did not reach outward. He remained. There is a kind of presence that does not demand attention. It does not rise or fall. It does not seek. It simply holds its place. Hades carried that presence, and the world, though it did not yet know it, would come to depend on it. The fall of the Titans did not arrive in a single moment. It unfolded, slowly, like everything else. Power shifted. The old order gave way, not with noise, but with certainty. And as that shift took place, the three brothers stood together. Zeus, Poseidon, Hades, each shaped by what had come before, each carrying something different. The sky above them felt wider now. The earth felt steadier. The silence that once held everything had begun to loosen its grip, but it had not disappeared. Not entirely. Somewhere, beneath everything, that same stillness remained, waiting, not as something to fear, but as something that would always be there. Hades did not turn away from it. He did not forget it. In a world that was beginning to move faster, to grow louder, to reach outward in all directions, he carried something older, something quieter, something unchanged. And as the new order began to take shape, as the world prepared to divide itself into sky and sea and earth, Hades stood at the edge of something not yet named, a place not yet formed, but already waiting, below, still, silent. The world did not settle all at once. Even after the Titans had fallen, something remained unfinished. The air felt quieter, but not complete. The sky stretched wide above, yet it did not feel claimed. The seas moved in long and steady rhythms, but they did not yet belong to anyone. It was a pause, a moment between what had ended and what had not yet begun. The three brothers stood within it. Zeus did not rush, though there was motion in him, a sense of direction. Poseidon watched the distant horizon, where water met sky in a slow and endless line. Hades remained still, as he always had, present without pressing forward. Around them, the world breathed. Soft wind moved across open land. Light shifted slowly across the surface of the earth. Nothing demanded attention. Nothing forced a decision. And yet a decision was needed. Power could not remain unshaped. The world could not remain open forever. Something had to take form. But there was no argument, no raised voices, no struggle for control. Instead, there was something quieter, a trust in balance. They gathered together, not as rivals, but as equals shaped by the same beginning. Each had known the same silence. Each had emerged into the same uncertain light. And so they chose a different path. They would leave it to chance. The moment was simple. No ceremony, no grand declaration. Just three figures standing at the edge of a new world, allowing something unseen to guide what came next. The lots were drawn. Zeus stepped forward first. The sky opened to him. It did not change in a sudden way. It did not flare or shift. It simply seemed to accept him. The vast expanse above, with its quiet light and distant movement, became his domain. He looked upward, and for a moment the stillness held. Then it settled. Poseidon followed. The sea answered him. It moved as it always had, but now it seemed deeper, more defined. The surface rolled in slow waves, catching the light in soft patterns. Beneath, unseen currents shifted and turned. He stepped closer to the shore, and the water remained, steady, endless. Then it was Hades. There was no visible realm waiting for him, no sky to look toward, no sea to step into, only the earth, solid, quiet, unbroken. For a moment, nothing changed. The light remained the same. The air did not move. The ground beneath his feet did not shift or open. And yet, something had already been decided. Beneath the surface, far below where sight could reach, a place waited. This moment lingered. The earth felt heavier now, not in a way that could be seen, but in a way that could be sensed, as if something below had drawn closer, as if a space had been acknowledged, even though it remained hidden. Hades did not step back. He did not question. He simply accepted. The realm beneath the earth was his, not chosen, not shaped by desire, but given. And in that quiet acceptance, something settled into place. There's a kind of power that comes from taking what is given without resistance. It does not rise or fall. It does not seek to change what is already set. It remains. Hades carried that power. Above, the sky stretched without end. The sea moved in its slow and constant rhythm. And below, unseen and untouched, the underworld began to take form. It did not appear all at once. It did not rise into being. It gathered, slowly, like something that had always existed, but had only now been noticed. Paths began to shape themselves in darkness. Rivers found their way through unseen spaces. Boundaries formed where none had been before. There was no sound of creation, no movement that could be followed, only a quiet unfolding. Hades stood at the surface, but his presence extended downward, into the stillness, into the place where light did not reach. He did not need to see it. He did not need to shape it with his hands. It responded to him, not with motion, but with alignment. A realm of stillness, governed by stillness. A place where nothing rushed, where nothing was lost, where everything arrived in time. The others did not look below. Their domains were visible, tangible, filled with movement and change. The sky would carry storms and light. The sea would rise and fall, but the realm beneath remained quiet, unseen. There is a kind of distance that is not measured in space. It is measured in understanding. And even among the gods, the realm of Hades remained distant, not feared, not yet, but not fully known. Time moved, softly, without urgency. And as it did, the boundaries between the realms settled into place. The sky remained above. The sea stretched across the world. The earth stood between them. And beneath it all, the underworld waited. There is a moment just before something becomes familiar when it still feels unknown. That moment lingered. The wind passed gently across the surface. The light dimmed and brightened in slow patterns. The ground held steady beneath every step. Nothing seemed different, and yet everything had changed, because now there was a place where all paths would eventually lead. a place that did not call out, a place that did not need to. Hades turned his attention downward, not with curiosity, not with hesitation, but with recognition. This was not a burden. It was not a punishment. It was simply his. And in accepting it, he became something the world would always need. Not a ruler of noise or motion, but a keeper of stillness, a presence that did not fade, a boundary that did not break. Above, life would continue. It would grow, change, and move forward in ways that could be seen and felt. Below, something else would remain. Quiet, certain, unmoving. And from this moment forward, the balance of the world would depend on all three: the sky, the sea, and the silent realm beneath. Far below the surface of the earth, beyond the reach of light, a different kind of world began to settle into form. It did not rise or expand in any sudden way. It gathered slowly, like a thought that had always been present, but had only now come into focus. There was no sky there, no horizon, no shifting color, only a dim and constant twilight that never changed. It was not dark in the way night is dark. It was softer than that, more distant, as if the idea of light still existed, but had grown quiet and far away. The ground stretched outward in every direction, smooth in some places, uneven in others. It felt ancient, though time did not pass in a way that could be measured. Nothing rushed. Nothing demanded attention. Everything simply remained. Hades moved through this space without sound. His presence did not disturb the stillness. It aligned with it, as if the realm itself recognized him. Above, the world of the living continued to move. Days rose and fell. Wind crossed fields. Water carried its endless rhythm. But here, there was no such motion, only a slow and steady quiet. The first souls arrived without ceremony. There was no moment of arrival that could be marked or announced. They simply appeared, as if they had always been part of this place. Shapes without weight, forms without edges. They did not speak. They did not call out. They drifted, gently, toward something unseen. This moment lingered. A faint movement passed through the still air. Not a sound, but something close to it, like a distant memory of motion. The ground beneath seemed unchanged, yet there was a sense of direction forming, as if everything was slowly being guided. The souls gathered near a boundary. It was not a wall, not a gate, but something that could not be crossed without passage. A river. It moved slowly, almost without motion. Its surface did not ripple. It did not reflect. It simply stretched across the landscape, marking a quiet division between what had been and what would follow. At its edge stood a figure. Sharon. He did not speak. He did not call to those who approached. He waited. His boat rested lightly against the shore, unmoving. It did not creak. It did not shift. It seemed as still as the water itself. One by one, the souls came forward. Some paused, not out of fear, but out of uncertainty. There is a moment when something is left behind that cannot be named. It is not loss, not fully. It is a quiet awareness that something has ended and something else has begun. Sharon extended his hand, not quickly, not slowly, just enough. The soul stepped forward. The boat did not sink. The water did not part. It simply carried them across. The crossing was silent. No wind, no current, no sense of distance. And yet the other side arrived, as if it had always been there, waiting. Beyond the river, the land continued. Wider, deeper, more still. Paths began to form, though no one had walked them. They stretched into different directions, each leading toward a place not yet seen. Hades observed. He did not interfere. He did not guide each step. The system did not require it. It moved on its own. There is a kind of order that does not need to be enforced. It exists because it must. The underworld held that order. The rivers did not overflow. The boundaries did not shift. Everything remained where it belonged. Another moment settled into place. A faint echo of movement passed through the distance. Not a sound that could be heard, but something that could be felt. As if the space itself remembered something older than the present. Further in, other rivers traced their quiet paths. One carried forgetfulness, another carried sorrow, another marked a deeper boundary. They did not cross. They did not merge. Each followed its own course, steady and unchanging. The souls moved along the paths, not quickly, not slowly, just forward. There was no urgency, no need to arrive, only a quiet continuation. The air held no scent, no warmth, no cold. It existed without change. And in that stillness, the presence of Hades remained, not above, not below, but within. He did not need to speak. He did not need to command. The realm answered to him without sound. There is a difference between control and balance. Control presses. Balance holds. Hades held, and the underworld remained. Time, as it was known above, had no place here. There were no mornings, no nights, no passing hours, only a steady and unbroken now. The souls did not age. They did not fade. They simply were, as everything here was. Hades moved deeper into his realm. The ground shifted beneath him in subtle ways, not changing, but revealing, as if the space adjusted to his presence without needing to move. He did not search. There was nothing to find. Everything was already where it belonged. Far in the distance, beyond the rivers and the drifting paths, something waited. Not yet shaped, not yet defined, but present. The underworld was not complete, not fully. It was still becoming. Slowly, quietly, without force, and at its center, there remained a stillness that could not be broken. Not by time, not by movement, not by anything that would come. Hades paused, not because he needed to, but because the moment existed. And in that moment, the realm settled further into itself, deeper, quieter, more certain. Above, the world continued without awareness of what lay beneath. But below, everything was already in place, waiting for all that would one day arrive. And in that waiting, there was no impatience, only calm, only stillness, only the quiet and endless presence of the underworld. Beyond the quiet rivers, the path did not end. It continued, soft and steady beneath unseen steps. The souls moved forward without being told. They did not hesitate. They did not turn away. Something within the place guided them. Not a force, not a voice, just a direction that could be felt. The air remained unchanged. dim, still, endless. And yet, as they moved deeper, something began to take form. Not suddenly, not all at once, but slowly, like shapes emerging through a distant haze. 3 figures waited ahead. They did not stand in a line. They did not sit upon raised thrones. They simply existed within the space, as if they had always been there. Minos, Rhadamanthus, Aeacus. Once, they had been kings among the living, men who ruled with judgment and decision. Now, that same purpose remained, but without urgency, without weight. They did not rush to speak. They did not call the souls forward. They waited. This moment lingered. A faint stillness settled deeper across the ground. The space seemed to widen, though nothing moved. The presence of the judges did not press outward. It drew everything inward, quietly, gently, as if each soul already knew where to stand. One soul stepped forward, not chosen, not summoned, just ready. There was no exchange of words, no questions spoken aloud, and yet something passed between them. A life remembered, not in detail, not in sharp images, but in feeling, in shape, in truth. Minos watched. His presence was steady, unmoving. He did not lean forward. He did not react. The moment unfolded without expression, without sign. Rhadamanthus stood beside him, his gaze fixed and calm. Aeacus remained still, his attention quiet but complete. There was no anger here, no judgment driven by emotion, only recognition. The soul did not resist. It could not because it was forced, but because there was nothing to resist. Everything had already been lived, already been done, and now it was simply seen. The decision came, not spoken, not declared, but understood. The soul turned and moved. There were paths ahead, more than one, each leading somewhere different, each holding a different kind of stillness. The soul followed one and was gone. The next stepped forward. The process did not change. It did not speed up. It did not slow. It simply continued. There is a kind of order that does not require effort. It does not strain. It does not demand. It exists because it cannot be otherwise. This was that order. Hades remained nearby, not above them, not separate, but present. He did not intervene. He did not question. The system did not require his voice. It moved with certainty, as it always would. Another moment unfolded. A soul approached more slowly this time. There was hesitation, not fear, but a kind of pause, as if something still reached backward, toward a life that could no longer be touched. The air did not change, the ground did not shift, but the stillness seemed to deepen. The judges waited, unmoved. The soul stepped forward, and again, the same quiet exchange passed between them. A life, seen in its entirety, not judged by a single moment, not defined by one action, but understood as a whole. This was the difference. Nothing here was rushed. Nothing was reduced. Everything was held, and then released. The decision formed. The path appeared, and the soul continued. This moment lingered longer than the last. The faint sense of movement faded into stillness again. The distant space seemed to close, then open once more. Nothing changed. and yet the feeling of completion settled deeper into the ground. Far beyond the judges, the paths stretched outward. One led toward a place of quiet peace, Elysium. It did not shine brightly. It did not call attention to itself. It simply rested, soft and distant, waiting for those who had lived with a certain kind of balance. Another path descended further, Tartarus, deeper, heavier, not loud, not chaotic, but firm, unyielding, a place where certain actions carried a different kind of consequence. And then there was a third, wider, more open, the Asphodel Meadows, where most would go, a place without extremes, without reward, without punishment, just a quiet continuation. The souls did not question which path they were given. They moved, because the movement was already decided. Hades observed all of this, not with distance, but with understanding. This was his realm, not because he shaped each moment, but because he held the space in which those moments could exist. There is a kind of responsibility that does not act. It remains, it allows, it ensures that what must happen does. Hades carried that responsibility, without effort, without strain. The judges continued, one soul, then another, each moment the same, each moment different. No voices rose, no disputes formed, nothing broke the stillness, because nothing needed to. Time did not pass here, not in the way it did above. There were no hours spent, no waiting in line, only a steady unfolding, one after another, without end. Hades turned slightly, not away, not toward anything new, just a shift, a recognition that the system would continue. Always, the paths would never close, the rivers would never dry, the judgments would never stop, because the world above would never stop, and everything that began there would one day arrive here. He did not question this. He did not resist it. It was not his to change, only his to hold, and so he remained, as the souls continued forward, as the judges watched, as the paths stretched into quiet distance. The underworld did what it had always begun to do. It received, it understood, and it continued, without anger, without haste, without end. There came a moment when the quiet below changed, not suddenly, not sharply, but in a way that could be felt before it was seen. The underworld remained still. The rivers did not shift. The paths did not move. And yet, something new entered the space, a presence that did not belong to endings alone. Above the earth, the light had been softer that day. Fields stretched wide beneath a pale sky. The air carried the gentle scent of growing things. Nothing warned of what was about to unfold. Persephone walked among the flowers. She moved slowly without urgency. Her hands brushed lightly across petals. Colors gathered around her. Soft gold, faded violet, pale white. Everything felt alive. The ground beneath her feet held warmth. The wind moved gently through the tall grass. There was no reason to look away from the moment. This moment lingered. The light shifted slightly, not dimmer but quieter. The air seemed to pause between movements. Even the smallest sound softened, as if something unseen had drawn near. Then the earth opened. It did not break with force. It parted, a quiet separation, a space where there had been none. From that space, Hades rose, not in haste, not with violence, but with certainty. He did not reach wildly. He did not struggle against the world above. His presence alone changed the moment. Persephone turned. There was no time to run, no time to call out. The space between worlds had already formed, and in a single steady motion she was taken below. The earth closed, the light returned, the field remained, as if nothing had happened. But something had. Far below, the underworld received her. The air did not change, the ground did not shift, but her presence moved through the space like a quiet ripple. Something new had arrived. Hades did not speak at first. He did not rush to explain. He stood beside her, still as the realm itself. Persephone looked around. There was no sky, no sun, no horizon to follow, only a wide and endless stillness. She moved forward, slowly. Each step carried a quiet hesitation. Not fear, but unfamiliarity. The space did not answer her movement in the way the living world had. It did not echo. It did not respond. It simply remained. This moment stretched. The silence held. And within it, Persephone began to understand that she was no longer above. She was within something else. Hades watched, not distant, not cold, but steady. There's a kind of presence that does not comfort in the way warmth does. It comforts through certainty, through being unchanged, through remaining. Hades offered that presence. Persephone continued to walk. The ground beneath her feet was firm, though it held no warmth. The air carried no scent. The light did not shift or fade. Nothing moved, except her, and even that movement felt softened. She reached the edge of a river. It stretched across her path, silent and unmoving. Its surface held no reflection. It did not invite crossing. She paused. The moment settled around her. For a brief time, she stood between what had been and what now was, not fully part of either. Hades stepped closer, not quickly, not slowly, just enough. There were no commands given, no explanations spoken, and yet something passed between them, an understanding that could not yet be named. They moved together, deeper into the underworld. The paths opened before them, the same paths the souls would one day follow, but now they felt different, because she walked them. This moment marked a change, not in structure, not in order, but in presence. The underworld, once only a place of arrival, now held something else. A queen. Persephone did not take the role at once. She did not sit or rule or command. She existed within it, as she had above. But slowly, something began to shift. Time did not pass here in the way it did in the living world, but change still occurred. Quietly, subtly, like the turning of something unseen. Hades led her to a place deeper within the realm, not brighter, not darker, just more still. There, a simple offering waited, a pomegranate. Its surface deep in color, rich, unmoving. Persephone looked at it. She did not reach for it immediately. The moment stretched. There is a choice that does not feel like a choice. It does not arrive with pressure. It does not demand to be made. It simply exists, waiting. She lifted the fruit, held it. The seeds within caught what little light there was. Small, quiet, certain. She tasted them, one, then another. The act was simple, but it did not pass without meaning. Something settled into place. Not visible, not spoken, but real. Hades did not react. He did not need to. The realm itself had already acknowledged what had happened. Persephone remained, not as a visitor, not as someone passing through, but as part of the underworld. This moment lingered longer than the rest. The air felt unchanged, yet fuller. The stillness held, but with a new depth, as if the space itself had shifted to make room for something it had not known before. She stood beside Hades, not beneath him, not apart, beside, and slowly, without announcement, without ceremony, she became what the realm had not yet had, its queen. The paths did not change. The rivers did not move. The judges continued their work. And yet, everything felt slightly different. Because now, within the stillness, there was something that had once belonged to the world above. Something that remembered light, that remembered growth, that carried with it a quiet echo of life. Hades remained as he always had, steady, unmoving, but now he was no longer alone in that stillness. And the underworld, though it did not show it, had begun to change. Far above the quiet below, the world did not understand what had changed. The fields remained. The sky stretched wide. The wind moved as it always had. And yet, something essential was missing. Demeter walked the earth. She did not rush. She did not call out at first. She searched, slowly, carefully, as if the answer might be found in the smallest place. She moved through valleys where grain once grew tall. She passed through orchards where branches had once bent with fruit. Her steps were steady, but the world around her had begun to feel distant. There is a kind of absence that does not announce itself. It settles, quietly, until everything feels different. Demeter felt that absence. She called for her daughter, once, then again. Her voice did not echo. It did not return to her. It faded into the open air, carried away without answer. This moment lingered. The light above seemed softer now, not dim, but muted. The wind slowed as it crossed the land. Even the smallest sounds felt distant, as if the world itself had begun to listen. She continued, across hills, through forests, along quiet paths where nothing stirred. Time moved, but it did not bring her closer. Days passed, or what felt like days, but the search did not change. And slowly, something else began to change. The earth responded. At first, it was subtle. A field that did not grow as quickly. A tree that did not bloom. A seed that did not rise. Nothing dramatic. Nothing sudden. Just a slowing. Demeter did not notice at once. Her attention remained fixed on what was missing. But the world around her felt it. The ground grew quieter. The air lost its warmth. The rhythm of growth began to fade. This moment deepened. The soil, once soft and full, became still. The movement beneath the surface slowed. Roots did not stretch as far. Water did not carry the same life through the earth. Nothing stopped. But nothing continued as it had. Demeter's search became heavier, not in movement, but in presence. She walked through places that should have been alive and found them waiting instead, waiting for something that was no longer there. There is a kind of grief that does not break outward. It moves inward. It settles into every part of the world. Demeter carried that grief, and the world carried it with her. She reached a wide field. Once it had been filled with grain, soft and golden, moving in waves beneath the wind. Now it stood quiet. The stalks were thin. The color had faded. She stepped into it. The ground did not respond. She knelt. Her hands touched the soil. It felt the same, and yet it did not. She closed her eyes. For a long moment, she did not move. The world held still with her. Then she rose and continued. Her search did not end, but it began to change. She no longer looked only for Persephone. She began to feel the absence everywhere, in every field, in every tree, in every quiet space where life should have continued. And so, without deciding to, she began to withdraw, not from the world, but from her role within it. She did not guide the growth of crops. She did not nurture the soil. She simply remained apart. The earth followed. The change spread, slowly, across valleys and hills, across distant lands. Crops no longer rose. Leaves no longer opened. The cycle that had once moved without thought began to pause. This moment stretched across the world. The sky remained bright, but it no longer warmed the ground in the same way. The wind moved, but it did not carry life with it. The earth held still, waiting for something that did not return. Mortals began to notice. At first, it was confusion, then concern, then something quieter, a realization that the world itself was shifting. Food became scarce, fields emptied, the rhythm of life began to falter. But still, Demeter searched. She did not stop. She did not rest. Her grief had no end point. It simply continued. Below, in the underworld, Persephone remained. The stillness there did not change. The rivers continued their quiet paths. The souls moved as they always had. Hades stood as he always did. Steady, present, Persephone walked beside him. She had begun to understand the rhythm of this place, the way nothing rushed, the way everything remained. And yet, something within her still reached upward, not with urgency, but with memory, a memory of light, of wind across open fields, of warmth that could be felt. This moment lingered between worlds. Above, the earth grew quieter. Below, the stillness deepened. Neither moved toward the other, but both felt the change. Zeus watched. From above, he saw the fields that no longer grew. He saw the mortals who began to struggle. He saw the balance of the world begin to shift. This could not continue, not without consequence. He did not act immediately. He waited, because even now the moment required stillness. But the stillness could not remain. Not like this. Finally, he called for resolution. Not through force, not through command, but through balance. A message passed between realms, quiet, certain. Persephone would not remain below forever, nor would she fully return. A path would be formed, one that moved between worlds. Persephone would rise, and then descend, again and again, not once, but always. The moment of agreement did not echo. It did not shift the ground. but it settled into place, as all things here did. Persephone turned. For the first time since her arrival, she moved toward the idea of the world above, not away from the underworld, but between both. Hades did not stop her. He did not reach out. He understood. There is a kind of balance that does not divide. It connects. And now that balance had formed. Above, the earth waited. Below, the stillness remained. And between them, Persephone would move, carrying something of both. As she rose, the world above responded, not all at once, not in a sudden burst, but slowly. The ground softened, the air warmed, the smallest signs of growth returned. A single sprout, then another. The cycle began again, but it would never be the same, because now there would always be a time when she would leave, and a time when she would return. The world would rise, and then rest, grow, and then grow still. Not as loss, but as rhythm. Demeter felt it. She did not smile. She did not rejoice, but her grief softened, just enough. The earth followed, and so the cycle began, above, below, and between. There are some forms of power that do not announce themselves. They do not shine. They do not rise above everything else. They remain hidden. And because of that, they are rarely understood. Deep within the underworld, where nothing called for attention, there existed an object that carried this kind of power. It was not displayed. It was not admired. It was kept, quietly, as all things here were. The helm of Hades. It did not glow. It did not draw the eye. At first glance, it seemed simple, dark in form, unadorned, without markings that told a story. And yet, it held something that could not be seen. The ability to vanish, not into shadow, not behind something, but completely, to step out of sight in a way that removed even the idea of being seen. Hades did not wear it often. He did not need to. His nature already carried a similar presence. He was rarely noticed unless one chose to look for him. Even then, he did not linger in the awareness of others. He existed, and then he did not. This moment settled into the quiet of the realm. The air did not shift. The ground did not respond. The helm rested where it had always rested, unnoticed by those who passed through the deeper parts of the underworld. Long before it came into his possession, it had been created in a different age, a time when the world was not yet divided, when the Titans still held power, when war had not yet taken its final shape. The Cyclopes had forged it, not in haste, not under pressure, but with purpose. They shaped it carefully, giving it a function that did not rely on force. It did not strike. It did not defend. It simply removed presence. In the great conflict that followed, it had been given to Hades, not as a reward, but as something that matched him, something that reflected what he already was. A presence that did not need to be seen to exist. This moment lingered. The faint stillness of the underworld deepened around the object. Nothing moved toward it. Nothing moved away. It remained exactly where it was, as if the realm itself recognized that it would not be disturbed. There are moments when something hidden becomes necessary, not for long, not for display, but for a purpose that cannot be fulfilled in any other way. One such moment came when a figure from the world above descended, not in grief, not in quiet acceptance, but with a task. Perseus. He did not belong to the underworld, not in the way the souls did, not in the way Hades did. He carried movement with him, a sense of direction, of action. He came not to remain, but to pass through. The paths beneath his feet did not resist him. The stillness did not close around him. He moved with purpose, guided by something beyond the realm itself. He sought something that could not be faced directly, a creature whose gaze turned life into stillness. Stone. To meet such a force required something different, not strength, not speed, but absence. The helm was given, not taken, not claimed, given. Hades did not speak. He did not explain. The exchange did not need words. Perseus received it with understanding that did not come from knowledge, but from necessity. This moment expanded into something more. As Perseus lifted the helm, the air did not change. The ground did not shift, but his presence began to fade. Not slowly, not in stages, completely. Where he had stood, there was now nothing. No outline, no shadow, no sign, and yet he remained, moving, breathing, existing, unseen. The underworld did not react. It did not follow him. It did not mark his path, because there was nothing to mark. He passed through the realm as if he were not there at all. And when he returned to the world above, the helm went with him. It did not change him. It did not linger. It served its purpose. And then in time it returned, as all things connected to the underworld eventually do. Back into the quiet, back into stillness. Another moment, softer, followed. There are stories that speak of another who wore it. Athena, not within the underworld, but in the world above. Even among the gods, the helm held its nature. It did not announce its presence. It did not change the balance of power. It simply removed the wearer from sight, even among those who could see far beyond mortal limits. Even among those who could sense what could not be seen. The helm remained absolute. There is a kind of power that does not need recognition. It does not grow when observed. It does not weaken when ignored. It exists in full, whether it is known or not. The helm carried that power, and Hades, more than any other, understood it. He did not rely on it. He did not use it to command or control, because he did not need to. His realm was already unseen by those who lived above. His presence was already distant from their awareness. The helm was not an extension of his power. It was a reflection of it. This moment settled once more into stillness. The helm rested, unmoved, unwatched, unchanged. Persephone passed nearby. She did not stop. She did not reach toward it, but she felt it, not as an object, but as an idea, a quiet understanding of something that belonged fully to this place, a reminder that not all things needed to be seen to exist. She continued on. The paths remained steady beneath her feet. The rivers carried their silent flow. The souls moved as they always had. Nothing called attention to itself. Nothing needed to. Hades remained. Near. Present. As he always was. The helm did not define him. It did not add to what he already held. But it revealed something important. that the greatest forces are often the ones that do not appear, that what is unseen can shape everything without ever being noticed. And in the quiet depth of the underworld, that truth remained, unchanged, unspoken, endless. There are moments when something enters the underworld that does not belong to silence. It does not break the stillness, but it changes it, gently, almost without being noticed. Deep below the earth, where the rivers moved without sound and the paths stretched without end, a new presence began to take shape. It was not like the others, not like the drifting souls, not like the steady presence of Hades. It carried something with it, something that did not belong to this place, a memory of sound. Orpheus walked the path. His steps were careful, not hesitant but aware. The ground beneath him did not respond as it would above. It did not echo. It did not shift beneath his weight. It simply held him. He moved forward, alone, but not empty. In his hands, he carried his lyre. It rested lightly, as if it had always been there, as if it belonged to him in a way that could not be separated. He did not play at first. He listened. There is a kind of silence that is not empty. It is full of things that are not heard, but felt. Orpheus stood within that silence, and then, slowly, he began. The first note did not echo. It did not rise. It settled, softly, into the space around him. Another followed, then another. The sound did not push against the stillness. It moved through it, as if it had always been part of it. This moment lingered. The air did not shift, yet something within it responded. The ground remained steady, yet the feeling beneath it softened. The silence did not disappear, but it began to hold something new. The souls paused, not all at once, but gradually, one by one. They turned, not with urgency, but with recognition. The music carried something they had not felt since arriving. Not memory, not fully, but something close to it. A shape of feeling, a quiet reminder. Orpheus continued. He did not rush the notes. He did not fill the space. He allowed each sound to remain for a moment before the next arrived. Hades became aware. He did not move quickly. He did not rise or call out, but his attention shifted toward the sound. Persephone stood beside him. She felt it before she understood it. The music reached something within her that had not been touched since her arrival, not in a way that caused longing, not in a way that pulled her away, but in a way that reminded her of what existed beyond this place. The two remained still, listening. Orpheus walked deeper. The rivers did not stop him. The paths did not change. Nothing resisted, because nothing needed to. He reached the place where Hades and Persephone stood. He did not speak at once. He played. The music changed. It carried something clearer now. Not just presence, but meaning. A story told without words. A loss. A love that had not ended, even when the world above had changed. Eurydice. Her name was not spoken, but it was there, in every note, in every pause. This moment expanded. The stillness of the underworld held the music without breaking. The faint sense of motion passed through the space, not as movement, but as awareness. Even the distant paths seemed to draw closer, as if the entire realm had turned to listen. Hades watched. His expression did not change. His presence remained steady, but something within the moment shifted, not in him, in the space around him. Persephone stepped slightly forward, not enough to break the stillness, just enough. The music continued. Orpheus did not ask, not yet. He allowed the sound to carry what words could not. There is a kind of truth that cannot be spoken directly. It must be felt, given time, allowed to settle, and when it had, he lowered his hands. The final note remained, for a moment, then faded. The silence returned, but it was not the same silence. Hades spoke. His voice did not echo. It did not carry. It simply existed. He understood, not because he was moved in the way mortals are moved, but because he recognized what had been brought before him. A request formed, simple, clear. Eurydice would be allowed to return, but not without conditions. Orpheus must walk before her. He must not turn, not until they reached the world above, not until the light had fully returned. There would be no second chance. Orpheus accepted. He did not hesitate. He did not question. He turned and began to walk. This moment stretched into something quieter. The path before him remained unchanged. The air held its stillness. The ground did not guide him, yet it did not resist. Behind him, Eurydice followed. He could not hear her, not clearly, only the faintest sense of presence, enough to continue, not enough to be certain. The path rose slowly, not steep, not difficult, but long, very long. There is a kind of doubt that does not arrive all at once. It builds, quietly. With each step, Orpheus continued, forward, always forward, but the silence behind him remained. No voice, no footstep, nothing to confirm what he believed. The light ahead began to change, soft at first, then clearer. The edge of the world above approached. He slowed, not because he chose to, but because something within him did. The doubt deepened, not loud, not overwhelming, just present, a question without words. Is she there? Is she still following? He stepped closer to the light. One more step, then another. The boundary was near, so close, and in that final moment he turned. The movement was small, simple, but it was enough. Eurydice stood behind him for an instant, only an instant, and then she was gone, not taken, not pulled away, but returned to where she had been. The silence closed around the space once more. Orpheus stood alone. The light ahead no longer mattered. The path behind no longer existed. He remained, still, for a long moment. Then he continued, upward, without her. Below, the underworld returned to itself. The music faded. The stillness settled. The paths resumed their quiet rhythm. Hades remained, unchanged. Persephone stood beside him. She did not speak, but she understood something new, not about loss, not about grief, but about the limits of what could be changed. Even here, even in a place where everything remained, there were boundaries, and once they were crossed, they could not be undone. The realm held that truth, quietly, as it held all things. And far below the world above, the silence continued, unbroken, endless. Not all who entered the underworld came in silence. Some arrived with purpose. Not to remain, not to drift, but to complete something that could not be done anywhere else. Far above, the world of the living continued its steady motion. The wind moved across open land. The sea rose and fell in its endless rhythm. Life carried forward, unaware of what waited below. And yet, there were moments when the boundary between worlds grew thin, when something living stepped downward. Heracles was one such figure. He did not descend in grief. He did not come searching for what had been lost. He came because he had been given a task, a final labor, one that could not be avoided, one that could not be completed in the world above. To enter the underworld, to face what guarded its gates, and to return. The path downward did not open for him. He found it, through caves that stretched deep into the earth, through narrow passages where light faded slowly, then completely. The air grew still as he moved. The sounds of the living world fell away behind him, step by step, further, until there was no trace of above. This moment settled around him. The ground beneath his feet became firm and unchanging. The air held no movement. The silence was complete, yet not empty. It carried something older than sound. Heracles did not hesitate. He continued. His presence was different from the souls that passed through this place. He carried weight, breath, motion that belonged to life. The underworld did not reject him, but it did not welcome him either. It remained, as it always had. He reached the river. Sharon stood waiting, unmoved, unchanged. There was no exchange of words that echoed through the space. No challenge given. No refusal spoken. The moment passed in quiet understanding. Heracles stepped into the boat. The water did not shift. The crossing began. Slow, silent, without direction. And then it ended, as if no distance had been traveled at all. He stepped onto the far side. The ground held him. The path stretched outward. He moved forward, deeper. The stillness did not press against him. It did not attempt to slow him, but it surrounded him, constant and complete. He followed the path until something else came into view. A shape, large, still, waiting. Cerberus, the guardian of the underworld. 3 heads rested upon a single body, each one still, each one aware. The creature did not move to attack. It did not rush forward. It watched. This moment lingered. The space around them felt unchanged, yet heavier. The silence deepened, as if even the faintest movement had been drawn inward. The ground beneath them remained steady, holding the weight of both without response. Heracles stepped closer, not quickly, not slowly, just forward. Cerberus remained. Its eyes followed him, all 3. There was no growl, no warning, only presence. There is a kind of strength that does not rely on motion. It waits. Cerberus held that strength. Heracles did not reach for a weapon. He carried none for this task. This had been made clear. No blade, no tool, nothing that would break the balance of this place. Only his hands, only his strength. He moved closer still. The distance between them closed. Cerberus rose, not in anger, not in haste, but in response. The moment expanded. Heracles stepped forward and reached. The creature moved to meet him. There was no sound of impact, no clash that echoed through the underworld, only the movement of two forces meeting in quiet resistance. He wrapped his arms around the creature, firm, certain. Cerberus resisted, not wildly, not without control. The three heads shifted. The body pressed against him. The struggle did not break the silence. It remained contained, as if the underworld itself held it within its stillness. Heracles held on. He did not rush. He did not force the moment to end. He endured it, and slowly the resistance changed. Not gone, but settled. Cerberus stilled, not defeated, not harmed, but held. The moment eased. The tension faded into the quiet. Heracles released his grip. Not fully, just enough. The creature remained beside him, no longer resisting. This was the agreement, not spoken, but understood. Hades had allowed this, not as a gift, not as a test, but as a condition. The rules of the underworld had not been broken. They had been followed. Heracles stood beside Cerberus. The path behind him remained. The way forward opened once more. This moment softened. The stillness returned to its original shape. The faint sense of movement disappeared. The space around them settled, as if nothing had occurred at all. He began to walk. Cerberus followed, not led, not pulled, but moving beside him. The return was the same as the descent, quiet, steady, unchanged. The river did not resist. Sharon did not question. The crossing passed as it had before. And then, slowly the path rose. The faint idea of light returned. Soft at first, then clearer. The world above waited. Heracles stepped forward, Cerberus with him. For a brief moment, the boundary between worlds opened. The living and the dead existed side by side. And then, just as quietly, the task was completed. Cerberus was returned, not left above, not taken away, returned to where it belonged. The boundary closed. The path disappeared. The underworld remained, unchanged. Hades stood within his realm. He had not moved. He had not needed to. The balance had been held. The rules had been followed. Nothing had been broken. Persephone remained beside him. She had watched, not with concern, but with understanding. There are moments when the world above reaches downward, not to change what exists below, but to pass through it, briefly, carefully, and then return. This had been one of those moments. The underworld did not keep Heracles. It did not claim him. It allowed him to come and to leave, because even in a place of endings, there were limits to what could be held. And as the silence settled once more, as the paths resumed their quiet purpose and the rivers continued their unseen flow, the realm returned fully to itself, still, unmoving, certain, as it had always been, and as it would always remain. Over time, stories change. They soften in some places. They sharpen in others. They take on new shapes, depending on who tells them and when. Hades became one of those stories. Above the earth, in the world of the living, his name began to carry a different feeling. It was spoken less often, and when it was spoken, it was done carefully, quietly, as if saying it too freely might draw attention from somewhere far below. The idea of his realm shifted, not all at once, not in a single telling, but slowly. The quiet place beneath the earth became something darker in the imagination, something harsher, something filled with punishment and fire. But that was not how it had begun. Far below, nothing had changed. The underworld remained as it always was, still, ordered, unmoving. Hades did not transform with the stories told above. He did not become something new. He did not reach upward to correct what was said about him. He remained, as he had always been. There is a kind of truth that does not depend on being understood. It does not change when it is misunderstood. It does not fade when it is forgotten. It simply continues. Hades carried that truth. This moment settled gently into the quiet. The air did not shift. The ground did not respond. The stillness held, unchanged, as if the stories above had never reached this place at all. He moved through his realm, not as a ruler who commanded, but as a presence that held everything in place. The rivers followed their paths. The souls continued their quiet movement. The judges remained at their post. Nothing required correction. Nothing required attention, because everything already existed within balance. Persephone walked beside him. She had known both worlds, the one above, filled with light and motion, and the one below, filled with stillness and certainty. She did not compare them. She did not choose between them. She existed between them, a bridge, a rhythm. She understood something that few others could, that the underworld was not a place of cruelty. It was a place of completion, a place where things came to rest. This moment lingered. The faint sense of distance between worlds softened, not in a way that brought them closer, but in a way that revealed how they were always connected. The stillness below and the movement above were not separate. They were part of the same quiet pattern. Above, life continued. Fields grew, then faded. The seasons turned, carrying Persephone with them. Her return brought warmth. Her descent brought stillness. The world accepted this rhythm, even if it did not fully understand it. Hades did not rise to meet the world above. He did not step into its light. He remained where he had always been, not trapped, not confined, but placed. There is a difference. To be trapped is to resist. To be placed is to belong. Hades belonged, not because he chose it, but because it was what he was. His name carried another meaning, the unseen one, not hidden, not lost, but beyond sight. This moment deepened. The underworld seemed to stretch further, though it did not move. The silence held more fully, as if it had settled into its final form. Nothing needed to be added. Nothing needed to be taken away. There were those above who feared him, who imagined his realm as something to avoid, something to escape. But there was no escaping it. Not because it pursued, but because it waited, patiently, without urgency. Every path, no matter how distant, would one day lead downward. Not as punishment, not as reward, but as continuation. Hades understood this. He did not hurry it. He did not delay it. He simply held the place where it would arrive. Another moment passed, soft, unmarked. The souls continued to move along their paths, some toward quiet peace, some toward deeper reflection, most toward a steady and unchanging field where nothing was demanded of them. They did not question where they were. They did not resist what had come. They simply remained, as the realm itself remained. Persephone paused, not because something had changed, but because the moment existed. She looked outward across the stillness, not searching, not longing, just seeing. Hades stood beside her, unmoved, certain. Together, they held the balance, between above and below, between motion and stillness, between beginning and end. There's a kind of power that does not grow. It does not seek to expand. It does not rise. It remains constant. Hades carried that power, quietly, without need for recognition, without need for understanding. And in that quiet, he became something essential, not feared, not praised, but necessary. This moment settled into its final shape. The rivers continued. The paths remained. The silence held. Nothing changed, because nothing needed to. And far below the surface of the world, beyond light, beyond time as it is known above, the underworld continued, steady, endless, at rest. Hades remained within it, not as a shadow, not as a figure of darkness, but as something older, something quieter, a keeper of what comes after, a presence that does not fade, a stillness that does not break. And in that stillness, everything found its place, at last, and always. The story does not end. It settles, like everything else that has come before. The paths below continue without sound. The rivers move without change. The quiet remains, holding everything in place. Hades stands within that stillness, unmoving, certain, not as something to fear, but as something that simply is. Above, the world turns. Soft light fades into evening. The air cools. The noise of the day begins to drift away. And slowly, gently, everything begins to quiet. This moment lingers. Your breathing softens. The space around you feels still. Nothing asks for your attention. Nothing pulls you forward. Only rest remains. Like the underworld, it does not rush. It does not demand. It waits, patiently. If your thoughts wander, let them. If they grow quiet, let them. There is no need to follow them anywhere, only to drift, softly, gently. Here on Sleepy Legends channel, there are always more stories waiting. Quiet ones, ancient ones, stories that unfold slowly and rest just as softly. You can return to them anytime. For now, there is nothing else to do. No path to follow, no question to answer, only stillness, only rest. And as the world fades a little further into quiet, you can let go of the day and settle into sleep.